What is up, everyone? My name is Graham Giancola. Welcome to Vibin with G. And here we have improvster Anand Rajaram. How are you, Anand?
I'm great, Graham. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks for asking. Are you are you excited to be interviewed by me?
Yeah, this is gonna be
Yeah,
fun. Thanks for reaching out.
you're welcome.
Why did you think of me your first guest?
Well, I wanted to find some people firstly grew up with watching and talking about some of their nostalgic memories and stuff.
Yeah, where? What was the memory? You told me in a message, but
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later on. Right now, I'm going to
okay.
start off with. So, you were born on March 5th, 1972, in New Delhi, India. How come you decided
hmm
to move to Canada?
Well, we moved when I was 5, so I didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. But it was like anything, like Canada had a smaller population. There were new immigration laws that allowed people to come in
Oh,
and establish themselves here. And my parents were, they're kind of adventurous that way, so they decided to try
I
something new.
get.
Yeah.
Sweet. So, I heard you're into the improv business. How did you get into that? And how did you get into Second City Improv?
Improv was always something that was interesting to me, but I never had like some people have done very formalized, like Improv Olympic or something like that, the Canadian Improv Games. I'd never done any of those games. I'd never learned like organized improv, but the idea of improvising character, improvising stories was, yeah, I think something that my friends and I would do often anyway.
Oh,
And
that's
then when
nice.
I was, yeah, when I was in university, we informally started an improv group, but it never really went anywhere because none of us had a way of organizing the idea. Um, and there was no such thing on the university campus that we could attach to. So
Mm-hmm.
then it wasn't until years later, Second City had a scholarship.
Ooh,
So I
scholarship.
auditioned for the scholarship and I won a scholarship with them. So I got free classes.
Wow, free classes.
So I did that for a little while, and then I got on their system and on their radar. And then after that, I had already started in theater as a career. So they kept kind of their eye on me. And at one point, they were opening a new theater. They closed the one on Blue Jay Way. They were opening a new one on Mercer Street. And they wanted to bring in like half of an old cast that was already there and then introduce a new cast as well. The producer, who was coming from Chicago, was given a short list of names, and I was on that list. And I had a show that I was doing at the Summerworks Festival, which was a 60-minute mime show. So there was no dialogue. The whole thing was mime with improv, with music. It wasn't improvised, but it was like watching a silent movie on stage. The producer came to see that and then
Yeah.
asked me if I wanted to audition for the company. So I joined the cast and I auditioned with them. And then we got along really well. So then I went straight to the main stage. The standard way for Second City is that you do like the touring company or various other understudy companies, and then you slowly build and build. You learn the sketches, you learn the style, and then you build up to the point of main stage. That wasn't my journey. I went straight to the main stage.
Oh, the main stage. Nice. So, you're in this thing called Memory Lane. It's an improv virtual event. What's it about?
That's something that I created where I use augmented reality masking and I create a series of characters that's hosted by Deepak Chopra. Do you know Deepak Chopra?
I don't think so.
He's um he's kind of a self-help guru. Some people call him kind of a quack pseudoscientist. Other people
Quack.
find he's good for them. He sort of looks like this.
Oh my gosh.
Like Chopra generally looks like and generally it sounds like. And and there's a variety of other characters that I would do in the same format, you know. So in Memory Lane, what I do is I do an improv with somebody as Deepak Chopra, and then I get some story in their life, and then I have other improvisers join me and recreate their story for them. But we ask them, who would you cast to play you and the other parts in the film of your life? So then when they choose, then I build the augmented reality masks, and then we wear the masks and we perform their story back to them with those masks on as if it's a movie.
Oh, movie, nice. So now we're off from improv. Now we get into the your acting career. So in 2000 to 2002, at least of what I know from IMDb, you voiced and even what's it called? Oh yeah, portrayed. No, you voiced and performed Snit from Snit Station. How did
Mhm.
you do that? How did you perform while voicing him?
Uh, so that was an interesting gig. I really, really loved doing that job. The origin of it was there was a CBC Kids TV show where they were looking for an on-camera host who could make crafts as well as just engage with the kids.
Kind of like
So
Mr.
I
Maker.
said,
Kind of like Mr.
yeah, I
Maker.
guess, yeah, maybe something like that. So what I was doing was I made a puppet, a sort of a paper bag puppet. But my audition was really wacky, and so I didn't get the gig. But the producer was Christine McGlade, who was amazing. If you see, you can't do that on television. If you know that show, that's like a classic kids show from the 60s, from the 70s and 80s. I think it's the 80s actually. She was kind of the signature face of that show. She did a bunch of seasons. She's a fantastic actor, but she's a really, really great producer as well. She was the one who was producing that show. I wasn't right for CBC, but then shortly after she went to YTV and she needed somebody to voice Snit. And then she remembered me and she dug through old acting tapes, found me, found my
Uh-huh.
information. And so it was probably like I think a year and a half after I auditioned that she remembered me and called me up, which is also why for anybody who's auditioning for anything, you never know when one audition can lead to other work. So you always want to be professional and bring your best work. So when she brought me in, she gave me a remote control, which would control the Snit robot, which I'd never done before. It was animatronic puppetry. And so then I created the voice and the puppetry for it. And then they ran my voice through a filter as well. I wrote, I think maybe a couple of the scripts. I mostly didn't write the scripts. Mostly either Christine or Stephanie Brochard, who was the on-camera person,
Nice.
or Steve. Oh my God, DeGay. Steve DeGay was a fantastic director. He might write some scripts. So, but it's mostly Christine writing.
So, before we get into my favorite part of the interview, you were with Corpus Dance Projects. How did that happen?
I was working as an usher at the Premier Dance Theatre at the Harbourfront Centre in Toronto.
Hmm.
And so, as an usher, I would get in to watch a bunch of shows. And if you're a performer, a young performer, and it's something you're interested in doing, I would highly recommend get a job being an usher because you get to see fantastic shows for free and be around that theater. And, so I worked as an usher at Roy Thompson Hall as well as in the Premier Dance Theater. So when I was there, I saw Corpus performing. They're a dance theater company, a clown-based dance theater company.
Nice.
And so they have some parts that they do that are very dancey and some parts that are very clowny. And whenever I stepped in as usher, I only saw the clowny parts. And I thought, oh, I can do this. I love this company. I want to work with them. If I'd see the dancey parts, I would have thought, oh, no, I can't do that. And I wouldn't have auditioned.
Hmm.
But because I saw the clowny parts, I went to them afterwards at the stage door and I badgered them and said, I really want to audition for you. And again, most companies would say, no, you're an usher. We're not going to see you. But the people who were running the company at the time, Sylvie, oh my God, all the names of something. Anyway, Sylvie Bouchard and David Danzon are the two who were running Corpus at the time. So they said, we'll put you on a mailing list and then we'll call you when the auditions happen. So when I got there, the room was full of dancers and I was one of the only actors there.
Oh,
So then I did the audition, and because I was bringing something different and I had a clown kind of training and background, I fit in with the company, and so then they hired me. And we started right away to do one show called Flock of Flyers, which is their longest running show. And it's a really fun show about these five air cadets who, due to budget cuts, have lost their planes. So we wear black leotards and we do the flight formations running around on the ground, pretending to be planes. And it's a really goofy, funny show. It's really great for audiences. And so we done that show, uh, and then we got into the Jeux de la Francophonie, which is the Francophonie Games, like the Commonwealth Games, but for the French Commonwealth. And we represented Canada at the Francophonie Games, and it was happening in Ottawa at the time. So there
at Les
was troops.
Reds.
Yeah. So there were troops from all over the world who were Francophonie countries performing. And because it's the Francophonie Games, they don't just do athletics, they also do culture. So they had medals for poetry and writing and music and performance. So we had one for street theater and we competed and we won the gold medal for Canada. And then after that, then I continued touring with Corpus doing that show. And then we also started building another show called Nuit Blanche, which was which is a really great, really beautiful dance theater piece.
So you were talking about being an usher. What is an usher?
Basically, when you work at a theater and you're just helping people to their seats, handing out programs, there's nothing glamorous about the job. It's really about, I mean, you're there to, what's good about it is, first of all, you get to see shows for free. But secondly, you get a connection with audience members as they come in so that when you're a performer on the stage, you have a different understanding of people in the audience than if you never have that experience. So as a performer, I always think about the people because I remember the experience of them coming in. The ones who are coming in rushing from work, the ones who are really excited to see a show, the ones who are like exhausted after a hard day, you know, or coming in a bad mood or any kind of thing, and then realize what your job is as a performer once they come into that room.
Nice. That's interesting. So I mostly have known you from Foursquare when you played Lutsu on Foursquare. How did you get into Foursquare?
That's because of Corpus. Corpus Dance Theater were approached by Treehouse, or by the producer connected with Treehouse, to create Foursquare when it was going to be, as you know, 4 segments, one of which was movement. So Corpus would create all the movement, and then we were part of the company at the time, the ones who were in that show. So they just had us come in, and so we kind of did those bits.
Did I do a good Lutsu impression?
Yeah, sure.
Nice. Now it's on to the fun stuff. So if Snit and Lutsu met together, what would have happened, or what could happen if they meet in person together?
I don't know. You know, Lutsu is really, it's hard to say with Lutsu because I only knew Lutsu as a character as part of an ensemble. Lutsu didn't exist as a character outside of the ensemble. In terms of when you're a performer and you get a character, the more you know about the character, the more you can develop a whole narrative around that character. And Lutsu didn't have a life outside of that company. Whereas Snit in Snit Station was basically like a version of me at 8 or 9 or 10 years old.
Cute.
So I would be like mischievous and playful and goofy and silly. Lutsu had those qualities too, but in a very different kind of way. Do you ever thought of what it would be like if they came together?
Well, I think it would just be like some sort of silly friendship between those two guys, because, you know, they're goofy in their respective TV shows, in a way.
So can I ask you, do you remember the others besides Lutsu?
Yes. So I heard you play the ukulele. How did that start?
That's also because I was touring with Corpus. We were in Vancouver. There was like one day where we had some free time and I went walking around downtown and I passed by a music store and they had ukuleles in the window. And I thought, oh, I'd love a little portable instrument. And so I popped in there and I bought it. And then after that, when we did our European tour with Corpus, then I carried it with me the whole time. And then I would use it to like cheer us up and like make little songs about every little town that we'd go to. And so I used it a lot on tour. It's a really great little instrument to carry around when you're traveling because it doesn't take up much space, but it can be really great, especially as an icebreaker.
Nice. I have a couple more questions for you. My second or third last question is, for any of those improvisers out there, do you have any advice for them? Like myself.
I mean, the main thing is like, there's all sorts of classes that you can take, but more than the classes, I think the best thing you can do and the best way you can really learn is just organize yourself with a troupe and start playing. Find a cafe. You don't have to go to a proper theater. Find a cafe that's willing to host you one night a week or maybe once a month and get together in a back room somewhere and organize. And even though if the crowd isn't completely into it, it's okay. Work with that. Work with the most difficult circumstances you can, because then when you do have a captive audience, then your game can only get better.
I think that pretty much covers everything. Well, thank you, Lutsu, Anand Rajaram, for being my first ever guest on Vibin with G.
Right,
and I hope you can come back to the channel sometime soon.
Right, thanks, man.
You're welcome.